Well, it's a proud moment for me as a trainer. One of my students just beat an international master, and I'm going to show you the game right now. That student is Samay Raina. If you're following the Chess Base India channel, you would be very well aware that every morning we have Improve Your Chess featuring Samay and Biswa, Vaibhav, sometimes Tanmay, and they all come and they get trained by me. And a lot of people learn from that. We analyze games, and it was fantastic to see the improvement that they have shown in these few days. And from their rating is somewhere around 1100 or 1200, and it is now he's beaten an IM. So but the sad part of this entire thing is that the IM is me. So and I did not intend to lose this game, but it was just really very nice game that we are going to see. There were some moments of big mistakes, and there were also some moments of brilliance. We are going to go through that. So first, the context of the game. Today afternoon, when I was, I contacted Samay to help me a bit with understanding how a few of the features of live streaming works. He said, okay, I will help you, but somehow we couldn't figure it out together, and we decided to ask help from Tanmay. And he said he will be there in around 5 to 10 minutes, Tanmay Bhat, and. At that point Samay said, instead of just waiting, why don't we play a game? I said, okay, fine, now, let's play a game. And he sent me a challenge, and so it began. He was white, he opened the game with his favorite move c4, and I played e5, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, and I played f5. This was the same move that Vaibhav Sethia played with him today morning. And d4 was an excellent move by Samay. I went e4, and he played the move d5. Now after e into f3, he took, and I took on g2. I think the right move here would be to take on d7, and then after, let's say, you take bishop d7, bishop g2. I think the position is around even. But he took on g2, and here I wasn't uh, particularly looking at this position very deeply, so I simply took with the b pawn because it looked the most natural. But turns out that this is an inaccuracy. I should take with the d pawn, and now I'm a pawn up. Of course he can take, and I think bishop here, bishop f4 is a good move. Bishop e6, long castles, king e8, and let's say you take. I think after king f7, black is slightly better. First of all, the bishop on g2 is kind of hitting on this pawn, so it's a bit passive. My king is now safe, knight can come out, the bishop can move to c5 or b4, and black is doing okay here. Black has a fine position. But okay, taking on c6 with the pawn was not bad. But bishop f4, excellent move, developing the piece with a tempo. Sort of, at this point I started to feel a bit uncomfortable. This bishop is looking like this, so I can't play d6, this pawn would hang. This bishop is looking here, so but I still felt like, there's nothing much still happening, so I'll play knight to f6. And now came another powerful move, which was queen to c2. Which is, you're attacking this pawn on f5. And if I was a little bit more careful, I would have realized that this position is slowly becoming very dangerous, and I must have to find moves like rook b8, so that if f5 is taken, I can take the b2 pawn, and it's a mess. But I went g6, which is, I realized that this was slow, but I was not sure if somebody could take advantage of this play. But he did. He long castled, and this was another fine move. Looking at my queen and also threatening bishop into c6, a move for which I really do not have a good way to respond, because if I move my queen, bishop into c7 is just a free pawn. Next move, the bishop is coming to d6. Bishop b7 is something really I did not want to put my bishop in that passive position. So I decided to give up a pawn. I played bishop g7. He took on c6. Now I cannot take because the queen would hang. So I played rook to b8. Bishop g5 was played. But I think here he missed a nice move that would have given him a very quick win. You can't say a win, but it would have made my life very difficult. So white to play, what would you play here? Yes, you guessed it right. It's knight to b5, attacking the pawn on c7, and really there's no way to defend it. You can't play d6 as the pawn is pinned, and this pawn is just lost. Okay, so he played bishop g5. By the way, to knight b5, my idea was to just take then, bishop b5 and or cb5, and then I would castle, and I hoped that I can survive this, but objectively this is just losing. So I went he went bishop g5 here. I castled, bd5, king h8, and here I started to feel a little bit okay. My rook is on the open file. My bishop is looking at b2. Perhaps I'll get some counterplay, but Samay played another strong move, which is h4. I liked it. I liked his aggression because now he wants to launch a direct attack against my king on h8. Okay, so I thought for a bit and I said, let me start getting some counterplay. Queen e8 is something that you play after a lot of thought, and this would have been the best move. But I said, let's go c6 and attack the bishop. And if he takes, which he did in the game, I can bring my queen out, and now I have another piece into the attack. There are three pieces, and this knight could jump into e4. He took on f6, which I don't think is the right move. Just coming back to f3, and white is better. But he took, bishop takes, bishop into d7. And here I had two options. One was to take, and perhaps objectively this is good for black. Like, I play rook fc8, and I have very good play for the two pawns. These two rooks looking at the king. There is also the queen which is looking here, also the bishop. So I think I should be able to hold this. One interesting line which I saw was h5, rook into c4, hg6. I mean, this I didn't see during the game, but later on I was just analyzing. There's just no way to get out of the checks. The reason why you can't pick up this rook here is because c4 hangs with a check, and then it's lost. So that's the reason why you must keep moving the king, and it's a draw. Check, 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 so on. And maybe better to check with this rook, so that if bishop g7, then you have queen c4 with a check. Okay, so here I felt like I should swindle him somehow, and I played bishop b7. By the way, this is really not in the spirit of good chess that I'm actually teaching in the class. But well, I thought to myself that look, the rook is hanging here, and if he moves the rook, I have the move bishop e4, which makes his queen uncomfortable. And if he takes, then I have bishop into b2 supported by the rook. So I thought to myself that bishop b7 should be a good move, but I really didn't know what to do to f3. If he would have played f3, I was a little bit lost here. I mean, what should I do? Instead, he went h5. He was like, I have to mate him. And I think here I should have really focused a bit and taken the rook on h1, rook h1, and king g7. And I think black is just better because his king is kind of safe on g7 now, and there are no real mating threats. And at the same time, I always have the threat to take on c3. But once again, tricks, yeah, you play for tricks, then you are going to be facing difficult times. Bishop e4 is what I played, And now it's your move for white. Where would you move the queen, or would you take the bishop? What would you do here? Well, if you fell in for my trap, then too bad. Actually, I fell in for Samay's trap here. Uh, he played a brilliant move here in the style of Mikhail Tal. He took h into g6, just completely ignoring the threat to the queen. And this really took me by surprise. I hadn't seen it. I keep saying checks, captures, and threats. Here's a capture. I should have seen it. But this is why chess is difficult. Sometimes you know things, but you can't execute them so well. Knight into e4 was what I was expecting from him. And then I wanted to take on b2 with the bishop when the king is kind of in a difficult spot. If he takes here, queen takes, rook, king takes fe4. This is just winning for black. But also instead of bishop b2, I think rook takes b2 would have been very strong move, because after rook b2 he must take, because queen is hanging, and once again we reach the same position with better for black. So I was expecting this, but h into g6 came like a cold shower. I took on c2, but later on I realized that this is a bad move. I should have played h6, but here the calculations are too complex to be played in a short time control game. Also, we weren't thinking so much. We were actually waiting for Tanmay to come, who was not coming. King g7, rook h7, king g6, and now comes knight into e4. The point is that after you take king b1, bishop g7, bishop b5, king h7, knight g5 check, king g8, and queen b3. White has enough compensation here, and the position is roundabout even. So this is what I should have played, that is this move h6 in this position. Instead, I took on c2. I said, okay, let's take the queen. I did see that there is no mate, because after rook h7, king g8, I saw bishop e6, and I said, let me play rook f7, and I have won a queen. If he takes with the pawn, then I will take his rook. If he takes with the bishop, I will run away from f8. Here, white has a very powerful move. Can you find it? White to move. Yeah, Samay should have taken rook into f7, and this is really very bad position for me. Uh, if I play bishop into d1 here, then after rook a7 check, I simply lose my queen. So he must play queen e5, rook into f6, good move, king g7, check, king g6, check, king h6, rook h1, king g6, and rook f h7. And the next move, the rook is coming in here, and it's going to be a complete massacre to my black king. So this was winning for him, although not at all easy to see. He took with the bishop. I played king f8, and I think now comes the moment in the entire game which I feel should not have happened. It shows somewhere here that uh, I was not playing in the right frame of mind here, because when he gave a check, it's simply obvious you should take this guy. Instead, I played king e7, which is simply inexplicable. If I take this, it's completely winning for black. Instead, here it was much better to play bishop d5. This is a good move for white, threatening rook f7, and after bishop d1, you play rook f7, king e8, rook into f6, and somehow this position with the g6 pawn, d5 bishop, knight c3, and rook is very strong for white. Black has to play accurately to save the draw. Okay, rook h8. Somehow I missed taking that rook. I played king e7, and now came this check. The exciting moments in the game don't stop yet. I played king d6, and now he should have taken rook into b8. Now this is not so simple, because I take on d1 and he has to take back, and you have a knight and a rook for a queen, but this pawn is just very strong. And also this king is very weak. If you look at it, this bishop controls e6, this knight controls these two squares, pawn is controlling a few squares, and rook is all ready to start harassing the black king. So all in all, the white king is much safer than the black king, and this leads to a better position for white, winning position. But natural move was knight into f6, and I think here Samay was surprised when I took his rook because he had not seen it. But he can take here, and I was thinking for a bit what should I play here, and that's when I was very keen on playing bishop a4, because then you have a threat of queen e1 mate. But somehow I was thinking, this is good. What will he do? Maybe b3, then I have check, and then, or maybe I have a check here, and then I may be able to draw with a perpetual somehow. And all of a sudden, I made this move queen e1, which turns out to be the final blunder of the game. It's white to move and win. Rook d8 check, king e5, and he took on d1. I had to move my queen f2, and he played g7, and this is where I, I threw in the towel. The queen, it's going to be coming up, and this is just lost. I would be a rook and a piece down, and I resigned. So a great game actually. I think there were a few things that have to be learned from this encounter, which is first of all, this position where white started playing so actively with his pieces. Bishop f4, beautiful move, followed by queen c2 and long castle. This is how you play in the opening. You develop your pieces towards the center, you castle, you bring your rook in, and that's how you put a lot of pressure on your opponent. The next important moment was here, where Samay launched an attack with h4. I think that was a nice idea. And then the next part, I think, was this brilliant queen sacrifice with h into g6. Really, it was a very solid, very strong move. And Yeah, here rook into f7, and he would have won. This would have been a brilliant, immortal game if you would have taken rook f7. But now start the errors, and this was, I think, the low point of the game where I could have taken the rook, but I did not. And then at the end, he won. So there were two reasons for me to share this game. First of all, I'm very proud of my student Samay, who played really well, because I think it's one of the biggest compliments to a teacher when your student can beat you. Although I'm all ready for revenge next time. And the second thing is that you mustn't underestimate your opponent. In this game, I kind of played it a little bit lightly here. Finally, I thought it was a fun game, but actually it wasn't. You have to play seriously in every game, and here I should have played much better than what I did. And last thing, I said two things, but I should make it three. The last thing is that you must always believe in yourself, no matter what your rating is. Samay's online rating is somewhere around 1200, but he played this game really like a strong player. Many of the moves were simply brilliant. He believed in himself. He was not affected by his opponent's rating or level or anything. He just attacked freely, and in the end he won. I should have recorded his reactions. He couldn't believe that he had beaten an IM, and I think it's a big result, and that's why I made this video. I think it's a good memory for him, and also for everyone else. There was a lot of learning from this. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Thank you so much for watching this.